This is the Painting Business Pro Show, where we share inspiring stories from people who are just like you, who have created extraordinary results in their business and their life. We'll take the mystery out of it and show you behind the scenes exactly how these results happen. There's a simple process and a roadmap to follow to create life-changing success in business. You are capable of more than you realize. So listen in, discover what's possible, and let's unlock your potential. Let's go. Brian and Danie, love you guys. Thanks for being here. And let's kick it off with where you guys are at today. So tell us the name of your business, where you're at, how things are going, and then we'll go back in time.
Awesome. Sounds great. Well, honored to be here. Thanks so much, Eric.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Well, I'll start with just giving a snapshot of where we are today. Where we are today. So we just starting with revenue, I guess. We are on track to hopefully do just a little bit over 2 million this year. We have a project manager, estimator, a part-time office manager / production coordinator role, and then Danie and I, that's our team. We are on track as far as just some other numbers, I guess. We're on track to have kind of bouncing between like 48% GP, 25% net. Anything else?
You mentioned that was including your, so is that including your compensation, or that's after paying salaries to yourselves too?
I'm sorry, super important detail. 25% net includes everything.
All owner comp.
All owner comp. So what we pay ourselves and discretionary. Yep.
Yeah, and I think that's important just for everybody to like pay attention to, is like, because if you pay a higher salary to yourself and your margins are lower, some people don't take a salary, some because they run it up to an S corp, or like people do that in all different ways. So I think it's valuable to look at the benchmarks of your business. Is what's the total owner compensation between, you know, the salaries you pay, the income you take, and distributions. So it's around 25%.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for asking that. I meant to clarify.
Yeah. And by the way, for anyone listening, it's October 31st. We're doing this on Halloween. So, yeah, those numbers he's trending for, like we're at the end of the year. So those are all like pretty set numbers at this point, right?
Yes.
For how you finish up.
Yes, we're right at, yep, correct. Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, also, how do you guys know each other?
Oh, yeah. We're legally binded.
It's a good way to say it. Yeah. I don't know if I've heard that one before.
Been married for 12 years, and well, we can go through that story, of course, on how we started the business together and all that. But
yes, we're married.
Yeah, we'll go back for sure how you guys got into this, because obviously had different backgrounds. And yeah, we'll dive into that. So you're going to do 2 million this year. You're making great money, close to $500,000 in profit, which is awesome. I believe you said it's like 1.5 million residential and then 500,000 or so in commercial.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. That's really our one of our main goals to hit 1.5. Like our goal this year was to hit 1.5 residential repaint with a team in place, everything functioning really smoothly. Project manager, estimator, happy in their roles, getting paid well, happy, our crew's happy. That was really like our outlook to start this year on what we wanted to accomplish. The 500K in commercial, to be honest, was a little bit of, I'll call it luck from last year with a partnership we have who's given us a lot of commercial repaint work starting last year, going into this year. So it's really, almost kind of look at that as a little bit of bonus, a nice chunk of bonus this year. But that was our outlook and goal this year.
Well, dude, commercial is so often like a little bit of luck how you start getting into it. I mean, when you're doing 1.5 million a year in residential, like you're going to get those opportunities. And I mean, it starts lucky, and then you're like, man, this 500,000 was like pretty nice work. We should get some more of that.
Yeah.
We're definitely feeling that. Yeah.
And we do have the commercial course. I mean, has been helpful. Like now it's like, how do we get more of this? Yes.
Yeah. So with your guys' team, so I know you got your sales rep, your project manager, your office manager. What does that leave your guys' roles right now? Are you still involved in doing any estimates or sales? Are you doing, are you answering phones still sometimes? Are you managing projects at all? What is how involved are you guys still in those operations in the business now?
Good question. Like I can start as far as my role goes. I knew that hiring a PM and hiring an estimator going into this year. I knew that I really didn't want to have to do more sales if I didn't have to. And so just recently, just kind of actually just adding up my hours and time blocking and figuring out like how my time should be spent, and where it's being spent. So there's probably, I've got like 4 hours of meeting time. I've got one-on-ones with project manager and estimator. Those are each an hour. We have our weekly pulse meeting, we call it, every Monday. That's usually an hour with the whole team. So there's an hour there. We have a production meeting as well with our PM. That's just like a half hour to an hour. And then I'm still out in the field once a day with my PM and once a day with our estimator. I won't say a whole day, but my goal is still to get on 1 to 2 projects with my PM and 1 to 2 estimates with my estimator per week. So there's about 6-7 hours there of training, coaching, development. Aside from those tasks, business development, marketing, just trying to grow the business.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, marketing falls on you, right? That becomes the biggest thing.
We're trying to figure out who it falls on right now.
Yeah. Well, you, the owner, you 2 owners.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, you can go.
No, I think I spend about 25 hours in the office per week. I'd say my hours are kind of like 10 to 3 ish, Monday to Friday. And I still am helping with kind of overseeing our lead intake and our marketing, our social, business development, is what and then the meetings, I do as well. So that's.
How much were you doing? How much did the office manager like relieve you? I mean, what were you doing before you hired that person? Because that was, I think, a few months ago.
Yeah. Gosh, she has relieved me. God, yeah. In early summer, and she, probably like 15 hours, I feel like, per week.
You felt like you were doing more like 40 hours a week before you hired
her? Yeah, but more like it wasn't in the office. It was more, and then I was at home.
Yep.
More sporadic.
Well, I remember when you had your like never-ending to-do list, and you were kind of like you were drowning. Like, so it's 40 hours a week, but drowning versus like 25 hours a week and not drowning.
Exactly. Yes, not drowning. And now to where it's like, oh shit, yeah, what am I going to do, and how is that going to look like, and what responsibilities am I going to take on? Maybe away from Ryan, or just actually being able to work on the business.
Yep. So, okay. So basically you guys aren't doing, so Ryan, it sounds like you're mostly in training and support role now. It sounds like you're a lot in that role now too, Danie, of like the team that's running this. So they're the ones generating the sales, managing the projects, and you're really just in a support position with them now.
Yeah.
But you do the commercial work though.
That's a good point. Good point. So this year I still did manage commercial
and sold it.
With
how much work was that? Just for for anyone who's curious, like how much work was it to sell and manage $500,000 in commercial?
Not a lot. Yeah, not a lot. I mean,
well, because of the specific client and projects we had, it was pretty, like, once it got going, it was really kind of self-sustaining. So that was helpful.
Yeah, it wasn't like half my week or anything like that. I mean, while projects are going on, maybe 5 to 10 hours a week.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I was just going to add to like for your role, like as office manager and social media business development, like our part-time office manager now, she's actually a sophomore in college. I just thought that was maybe interesting. And she's working like 5-6 hours a week right now from campus, just still helping with things. And it's amazing how much she's able to help with, just as things are especially slowing down now. But in the summer, 15 hours a week was a lot of the day-to-day.
Well, it makes sense for you guys to kind of transition that. So right now, you guys, it sounds like you've got a really healthy business. It sounds like your schedule is actually like the best it's ever been, I'd imagine. I mean, what is it? How does that just feel for you guys? Like the workload, like how much you're working, what it takes? Like, how's it feel to be at this stage compared to the last couple of years?
I would say it feels good and weird and scary. It feels good in a way to me, that I started not loving doing like that day to day where I felt like if I was away, I was still having to like
Yeah.
do all the lead intake and all like the client communication, and now like I feel like, oh, I can take a day off and like things aren't going to go, to complete shit. Um, but then now I'm like, all right, so now oh, now I have to refocus my time and energy elsewhere, which I'm excited. I'm actually really excited about, but like how to, yeah, just restructuring that and getting into that. So
Yeah. Well, and you've done it for so long that there's like a little bit of discomfort not being on top of it.
right, yeah,
When you first start to you first start not managing all the projects, it's like a little uncomfortable. You're
yeah,
not doing all the sales, you're not managing the phone line. It's like a little bit uncomfortable at first. So I totally get that.
yeah.
And then Ryan, for you, like how's just the schedule and like just like the pace of the business feel now that you've
Yeah.
got people doing the day-to-day stuff for you?
Yeah. It definitely feels amazing. I'm not going to lie. At the same time, it's very new to us. Like this is just within the last, say, even like 3-4 months. Honestly, it just feels that new because our project manager came on, and long story short, we had a PM last year for most of the
Yeah.
year. Didn't work out. We learned a ton. That could be a conversation for another time. But our project manager, who we have now, came on beginning of March, and of course, right, like there's a ton of training, coaching, development to do shoulder to shoulder for quite a few months until he's running autonomously in his role. So like it's only been 3 or 4 months, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's like the first time in the 9 years I've had a business where this like it feels great, and there's like still moments of guilt when you're like you have these little, like I can actually feel like I can breathe a little bit,
Yeah.
and there might be days where like we time block and want to make sure our time is being useful. And I'm not the type of person like right now yet that only wants to work 5 to 15 hours a week. Like that's just like I want to be working 30 to 35 hours a week right now. Like that's the sweet
Yeah.
spot for me. And reinvesting my time into what's going to help the business grow and support the team. But to kind of finish answering your question, it's kind of getting over this like it does feel weird. There's a little bit of guilt, but it feels
Yeah.
great at the same time. Yeah.
It's a really normal thing. I remember working with Brian a little while back, and I don't know if I was working with him or how this came up, but yeah, just sharing like I feel guilty just like taking an hour and a half or two for like lunch with my wife, which is crazy, because that's literally like why you get into it. But when you've got like people out there and they're working and you're not working, like how do you resolve that? Like just take a day off. Is there anything like you've had some insight on that, or like how are you working through that guilt? Because it's really not your job anymore, to run those things. You've got a different job now, but any insight you've had into how to deal with the guilt of not working as much?
I don't think, it's nothing that I'm like stressing over too much or losing
Yeah.
sleep over, but I would say, I just am mindful, I think, and remind myself like, look, like you've worked your butt off for years trying to get to where you are right now and have some more of this freedom. Like this is why you're an entrepreneur, why you got into it,
Yeah.
not to sit on the beach, right? And like sip on drinks all day, but like have flexibility and freedom. And so I think just reminding myself of that is enough. And knowing that like part of this too, the bigger picture and the vision is like providing other opportunity for people, putting people in these seats. Um, and so when I keep reminding myself, okay, like we're doing those things right, it's okay.
And I would say
Well,
like
go ahead, Danny.
we both try to be mindful, and Ryan's really good at like when he is there working shoulder to shoulder and doing the development, and training. It's like it's he's like really there and intentional
Yeah.
and really good at it. So it's not like a half-ass, like, oh, I can't wait to get out of here and go sit on the beach and sip margaritas.
Yeah.
It's like he's there, and I think our team feels that and cared for and valued when he is there and when we are there. So that,
I went through this myself last year. I think I shared at the conference a little bit, like 16 months ago or something, where I needed to like ask more of other people. And I felt like even guilty doing that. Whereas like, hey, I need you to take this. And I dumped like tons of my work onto other people. And like, even that was kind of tricky for me, but you're building a business, and the business needs you to focus on the next thing. And in order for you to focus on the next thing, you have to stop doing other things.
yeah.
And one of the things that I know just help me just like sort through not like working all the time is my job is really the success of my team.
Hmm.
And the truth is that, I mean, you're doing a great job taking your time, training your people, and like being there and being there and being there. But there is a point where being there too much hinders their growth. Like you got to let them start to, it's like helping your kid walk. Like at some point you got to not hold their hand so they can actually get strong enough to do it on their own.
Yeah.
I remember one year I quit following up with my team all week. I'm like, hey, let's just experiment. What happens if I just do the meeting and don't call them all week? What happens? And what happened was almost nothing changed, for one. But the other thing is they would fail sometimes. And instead of me like catching it midweek, we would have a weekly lesson to start to teach them how to catch that on their own. And so over time, I know you'll continue to grow the business. You'll bring on other team members and have stuff. But if you didn't, let's just say you didn't, then the best thing for you to contribute to your team is that they literally don't need you.
Okay.
And then you would get to a point where you're like, so I basically do one-on-one meetings on Monday and then like don't work all week. And that would be a whole other level of discomfort. But it's the value you're providing your team is everything. The training, the role, the job, like their success, their life balance, their future opportunities, like that becomes your job in this phase of the business.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think, well, I know, not I think, I know part of probably the reason, a year in with our estimator and 7-8 months in with our project manager, I'm still investing that time with them is because last year we learned the hard way, I think, by not investing enough time. So I might be overcompensating for that, but I hear all the time that like the best thing and the most important thing that you can do is just work shoulder to shoulder, not just hand someone a job and give them a few weeks and say, here you go.
Yep.
And I think that did backfire on us big time last year, whether or not it would have been a good fit with that person. So, yeah.
Well, just to be clear, I'm not saying stop doing what you're doing. I think the way you're doing is really good. It's more like just the principle, like as you build teams in your business, like your job is their success. And that is way less of a hourly thing. I mean, when your job is selling, you need to put in the hours. Like if you do 2 estimates, like you can't sell 40 grand in a week. Like you have to put in the time when you're doing sales. But once it turns into like my job now is training and developing my team to be proficient, it's more of there's so much more leverage there, so it's way less of like a time thing. So that's just the principle that you want to kind of be thinking of over time, that like your job, that's not your job anymore, isn't to just put in all those hours. But I know what you guys are doing with your team has been really good. So what was it like last year for you? What, Danie?
I said I agree with him, like you, but
well,
I've been pushing back a little bit. Like I think you need to allocate those hours that he spends in the field somewhere else. And I think that'll come as we get to the slow season, I'm hoping. But
the way that you would do that is you would start to your monitor is their performance.
Mm-hmm.
And a down week doesn't mean, I need to get way back in this. It's because that's going to happen too. It's like, it's going to be up and down, but is the trend up, and as long as that's happening, it's not stagnating. Right. And that's kind of the test. So you can start like pulling away a little, but then if there's more problems, that just tells you like, okay, that's when you stop supporting and then you see the problem. It's like, okay, it tells you what needed to be trained more.
Mm.
And so it's not like you just cut it off either. You're still monitoring it. You're just pulling away slowly to see, oh no, I've actually got to get back in. All right, let's pull away again. And it's like kind of this in and out weave until, you're never going to stop training your team.
Right.
I mean, it takes like years for us to get to a point with one of our team members where like we don't coach them anymore. We don't talk to them about their role anymore because they are steady and stable with their performance. They can diagnose their own issues. They catch it right away. They fix it right away. That takes years to get to, but it is this like, you need less and less interventions over time, more and more time in between those interventions, because that's really what you're providing. That's like a huge value you're providing to people, is that they're high performers, totally competent without needing any support.
For sure.
So what was your guys' business like last year? Just for a reference point, because obviously you mentioned that the last 6 months has been like really a big shift for you. What was it even like in 2023 with your size of business, the profitability, what you guys were doing? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. 2023, we had, starting with revenue, we ended at 1,450,000 to be exact, right around there.
Okay.
40, I should say. And then of that, I think we had like 300K of commercial.
Uh-huh.
And then we had 44% GP overall.
Okay.
21% net profit. Again, that includes
Really
everything.
Yep.
And then that included having a PM most of the year. I was still doing all the estimates. And Danie was in full-time office manager role.
Wow.
So that was last year.
Damn. That's a pretty killer change over 1 year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 300K to 500K net profit, about 33% growth on revenue.
So we had an estimator, not a project manager. Right?
Yeah.
Then we had Max all year.
Last year?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Kyle came out in September.
Yeah. So you were project managing for like 4 months in between.
Well, it was busier.
Anyways,
Yeah.
I mean, it was busier, right? You're pretty involved. I mean, that's just a big shift. I think that's what's exciting when you start to get to the spot you're at, is you can have like these huge gains. I mean, imagine, you can't get a $200,000 raise anywhere else, in 1 year while working less. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
All right, so
Sure.
we could go a lot of directions here, guys, but I think I've got a little list of like some questions I wanted to ask you. But first, can you guys just share a little bit about what you were doing before you started a painting business and how you even got into the painting business? Because let's go back there. So that was 2016, 17. Yeah. Take it away.
You want to share a story, or do you want me?
You go ahead first, because you're the one who started the business.
Okay.
So how did you get into it?
Okay. All right. Those number of times. Each time I try to make it a little more to the point and shorter. But went to the University of Minnesota here from 06 to 2010 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I always knew I had an entrepreneurial, spirit itch. Knew I wanted to be a business owner ever since probably high school. So even towards the end of college, I started getting involved in some house flipping through a partnership that kind of continued outside of college. But I shortly realized after college, I needed something a little more secure here. So I did end up in the corporate world, cubicle land, we like to call it. Basically financial services industry at Ameriprise Financial and then US Bank. That was from 2011 to 2015. And during that time, I had a friend who, I had a friend who I partnered with. He was a very successful guy, had the pockets to do it. I didn't have any money at that time to think about house flipping, but we partnered up.
Yeah.
He was the guy with the money. I would manage the projects, get them done, do everything I could with my own hands, but hire like the electrician, the plumber. And we rode this roller coaster for about 3 or 4 years. Had many projects where we didn't make a dime, and then some that were okay. So it was a really hard 4 or 5 years of feeling like I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to be successful, right? And I think I was wanting to get away from the corporate world, trying to figure it out. we got married in 2012. So I was working 9 to 5 in the corporate world, probably spending 20 to 30 hours a week outside of that, evenings, weekends, trying to make this house flipping thing work. I just got to a point where I was just like, honestly, I was like really depressed. I felt like a failure. Our marriage probably wasn't great. And I was like, okay, I just got to be done with this house flipping thing. It's not working out. And so I remember one day just literally Google searching business ideas, in cubicle land, my cubicle. And you came up, Eric. This was like 2015, probably spring of 2015, in the early days of your Painting Business Pro course.
Real early days.
Yeah. And I think I don't remember exactly what caught my eye, but it was probably like, make $100,000 with a painting business, something like that. And it's like, at the time, like that was like the dream, like 100K, like my world will be set if I'm making 100K, that was like what I was striving for. And again, just to give some more context, like I probably had at like a 45K salary, average at corporate world. Like by no means was I working up the ladder or killing it or anything like that. And so for whatever reason, like the painting business, that just screamed out at me. And I just, again, to make a long story short, like I was like, this is it. And I remember telling Danie, sitting in the passenger car seat, like, I think I want to start a painting business. And, I can probably.
What do you think, Danie?
It was probably.
That was stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're going to paint? Like, that's going to make money? That's your answer?
Yeah.
But here I am being
supportive. Rightfully so. You had your doubts. Rightfully so. But you definitely.
I saw this guy on YouTube.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
100K. Let's do it. So I did. I purchased the course, right? As you recall, I don't know, it's probably like $350 at the time or something, and it helped me tremendously. Like it like get my LLC set up and all that. How to estimate.
And just to cover my own ass, that was I showed the CD set, and you were just after the CD set. That was 2015. I think our company must have been doing like $2 million a year or something at the time. So anyone who's listening, I don't want you to think that our program is $300. A lot more than that. Things have changed. But yeah, it was. I mean, one of the early ones.
At the time, it felt like $2,000 for me, though, probably, right?
Yeah, or a lot. Yeah,
a lot. So anyway, I'm sorry. I'll keep trying to move forward here as quick as I can. But I think it's important to just kind of point out.
How did it go at the beginning? I mean, so you decided to start it, and then did somehow Danie was like, "This is a really stupid idea, but okay, honey, like I'll support you." Is that what happened, basically?
Yeah, I mean, because he was coming home with ideas. I think one day he wanted to be like a UPS driver.
Well, that was a business idea.
He was trying to get out of cubicle land whatever he could. And I was like, fucking fine, whatever you do.
You pretend you supported and had your doubts, and then how did it like? It went well enough that you got yourself a second year. What happened in the very first year?
Basically, I approached my boss or manager at the time. I think it's important to maybe share with some people, might be able to hear this, but my boss at the time allowed me to take unpaid days off when I was getting my first few jobs. So I got my first job off of Craigslist, an exterior lead-based paint job. Didn't even know what lead-based paint was. Went and I didn't even know if I was going to sub it out or just go in and do it myself. I got the job and it's like, okay, I'm just going to go do this and figure it out. So I did the painting myself. Like that's how I started off. Again, as part of the story, like I just hopped on the brush and then kind of got caught in there. I don't regret it, but I painted for probably the first 4 years in my business and grew an employee model business. It's part of the story.
Yeah.
So Sorry, your question. Second.
How long were you doing that both split where you're like working your job and taking unpaid days off? How long were you doing that before you're like, all right, I'm just doing the painting business now and actually quit your job?
Like a month and a half. I think I got my first job in September, and then November I quit the corporate life. I probably should have waited a few months going right into winter, but
yeah. But you're like, look at all this money I just made.
When I realized I could do 2 jobs and make more than I was making, I was like, I'm out.
Yeah, totally, man. I understand. Yeah, you're like, I don't even care. Like, I just quit the corporate job.
Yeah.
All right, and then your first full year in business. Then, like, do you know what the results were in your first full year after you quit?
We'll say like 2016 first, like January to December. I think I got like 100K on the dot, and that was
in income or revenue or
revenue.
Okay, great.
You know,
so probably just enough for Danie to be like, fine, one more year.
Yeah.
I had my own job, so I was like, oh.
Yeah,
supporting me yet. So
yeah, you know, a lot of that went in my pocket, obviously, except for paint materials. So it's like, you know, we're in the right trend.
Yep. Okay. Nice. And then, let's see. And then, real quick overview of like how the next few years went, 2017, 18.
Between like 2000, let's go to 2018. I had 2 full-time employee painters. I was still in the brush. 2019, we had 4 full-time employee painters. I was still painting quite a bit. 2020, we bounced around anywhere from like 4 to 7 employee painters. I wasn't on the brush really. Starting to get off the brush a lot.
2019, you said?
Sorry, 2020.
That was 2020. And what was your revenue in 2020?
Oh gosh, if I were to, I think it was like 400K, 500K.
Okay. So you're like, I mean, just, the picture as I'm trying to get an idea of like, because it wasn't fast growth or anything. It was for a long time, very stagnant, and then something shifted.
100%.
All right. And then what after 2020? Keep going.
So, 2021 is when we transitioned into the sub model. And
Gotcha.
for myself, like, I think when I started the business, I was very anti-sub. Like, you can't do that and run a good quality business, just like a lot of people might think.
So we were hybrid for about a year.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then after that, I think towards the end of 2021, 22, then full sub model.
Gotcha.
2021 is when I reinvested back into the course, I believe, because I knew we were going to transition to a sub model.
Yeah. Okay.
2021, our net profit was 13%. And so when we started, then that's when he started really like honing in of like what our numbers are supposed to be, how to really like grow a healthy business. And that's when it started.
Yeah. Okay.
Nice. Daycare.
Yeah.
Say that again.
That's when we could actually afford some daycare.
Yeah, that's great. I was going to ask, when did you guys have kids? When did you start having kids?
So 2018. So I joined in 2000, around then, like when I was pregnant, because I used to work in special ed. I got burnt out, needed a change. He started growing it. So we had Zelda in 2018. And so I was always just kind of part-time and at home with the kids.
Yep.
And then 2020, we had Rita.
Okay.
And 2021-ish is kind of when we started. I could afford like help with the kids and then put more time into the business and growing that with him.
And then when did what was the revenue from there? So like, do you have that?
Right? Yeah. So 2021, we did 775K.
And that was the 13% profit year?
That was the 13% net profit.
About 100K.
37% GP.
Yep. Okay.
Started to figure things out here. 2022, we did 840K. But we didn't try to grow that year because we wanted to work on improving our numbers before we grew again.
What anyone should do if your numbers aren't healthy yet.
Yeah. So we ended at 42% GP, 27 net.
So you hardly grew revenue and you doubled your income.
More than doubled net. Yeah. Yeah.
Huge.
So once we accomplished that, we're like, okay, I feel like we can go make another jump here. So 2023, then we went to 1.4.
That's pretty sweet. All right, so you went from 21 was 100K in profit, 22 was 200 ish, 23 was 300 ish, 24 is like 500.
Yeah, I
That's
suppose.
a pretty good run.
Yeah.
What would you attribute what do you attribute that to? Because it was slow, slow, slow. So if yeah, one question, and then I'll ask it a different way too. Um, what would you guys attribute that growth to? Like, what did you start to focus on? What did you start to change that allowed that to happen?
You want to
I mean, at least from my perspective, it was going into the submodel
Yeah.
and honing in on a vision and numbers and being on the same page and like really clear about that.
Okay. All right, great. So let's unpack that a little bit. So first, like what difference did why is that your first answer? Is like we switched to a submodel. How did that in any way contribute to growth? Because a lot of people I think might hear that as that's just different labor. Like how does that actually set you up to like grow a company? What were the changes that made in the business that allowed growth to happen?
For the first 4 or 5 years, like we didn't really have a clear vision. So starting there, I was just pumped and happy for a few years, just doing my own thing,
Yeah.
and having some flexibility. And then as we got more involved in things like the PCA, painting
Yeah.
business pros, like really expanding our community, going to events, opening our eyes to what was possible and what other people were doing, it was like, oh, okay. It just really started to challenge me on like, where do I actually want to take this? Within the first few years, I didn't have that, you know,
Yeah.
intention like I do now, that super laser focus. And I would say like another, just helpful model that we use, like that's really kind of has been a perfect tool for us combined with, PBP is the entrepreneurial operating system, the
Mhm.
traction. That's just a great complement to what we're doing with PBP. But anyway, that forces you to kind of cast a vision and like get really detailed on where you want to go. So like we're circling back to like your question.
Yeah.
I think once I started to gain understanding of where I wanted to go, which meant scale and build and create the business, and that's what that's where we realized, the submodel thing probably makes sense for us. And there's a lot of aspects of growing an employee based model that are really challenging. Like just
Yeah,
people,
what were some of those? Because
yeah,
I'm not pushing back because I disagree with it. It's
yeah.
more like what did you discover in that? So what were a lot of the challenges that kind of disappeared, or what got easier when you switched to a submodel?
I'm going to add to
Yeah,
that, like what
yeah,
you're saying. I think when we had employees and like not didn't have, I think Ryan just like wanted to grow this business, but didn't have the vision there, and so I think it was hard to like
the tools. Yeah.
have like our employees see that too, and to like believe um, that they have skin in the game, that they like, oh, well, this is going to turn into something for me. And when we went to the sub route and they knew what we wanted to do, they got it a little bit more. And so
Yeah.
it was like easier for them to buy in and be like, yeah, like I want to grow too. I want work too. Um, so
Which
that,
really just points to like the power of vision, which
yeah,
was like one of the things you mentioned, Danny, was like, well, we had a vision, we did the sub model, and then you got really focused on numbers. And so a
yeah,
lot of what you guys have shared so far is like around that vision,
yeah,
which, is kind of why we're talking now, is like just to give people a vision, like what's actually possible in
right,
this business, like what can you actually do in this business, and
right,
that if you don't see that it's possible, you're not going to act on it.
right. And
And
now we have those team members that are direct employees and they get it and they see it and they want to be a part of it.
yeah,
And that's really exciting for them and for us and for our crews as well as a whole.
yeah,
Um,
which is huge.
I would say that also, yeah, I guess some of the problems or the struggles were, we thought like, oh my God, we're not going to have quality control, da, da, da. And we did. We had to go through some crews to find the ones that were a good fit. You're going to, just like employees.
Right. That's the thing that everyone forgets. It's like you also hire dipshit employees.
Yeah. Right.
Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Could spend hours talking about that. Yeah.
But once we were able to find crews that were aligned with our values and our beliefs and like got it, I mean, it all comes together
Yeah,
a lot quicker.
that's great.
Yeah.
What did you guys get really focused on with the numbers? When you mentioned like we got more focused on numbers, can you say more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with just understanding what are even the benchmarks we're supposed to shoot for. What are the industry standards? What numbers do you need to hit in order to grow and sustain a healthy business? I mean, probably didn't even know what those are for the first few years because it didn't matter what I was doing.
But every week we go over, I mean, the big ones, right? We go over labor, we go over materials and GP and net profit. Like we go over all those with our team. And someone who doesn't know numbers and isn't good, Ryan had to teach me those. I mean, he learned them and then had to fucking like really just nail them into my brain of like, why is this important? I didn't understand. I don't have the same mindset as an entrepreneur, like a business owner. And so I didn't understand like why can't we just go and do some jobs and make some money? And I don't love numbers, but really I've come to like appreciate them and trust it. And it gives me, it helps our vision and helps me make decisions, help us make decisions. And I like showing it to other people now when they come on, and it's fun when people start getting the numbers and believing in them and following them. It's important.
Yeah. Well, look at it, and that's where, before the benchmarks kind of end up being, well, I don't have benchmarks. I need you. So you end up working your business to a place where I can survive, because customers are always going to ask for lower prices and crews and people are always going to ask to get paid more. And those are going to squeeze you until you're at a point of like, I can't get squeezed anymore or I can't survive. And then it turns into survival, which is no foundation for a good, healthy business. It's how you end up at, 13% net when you're not, when you don't even have your team built yet.
Yeah.
Now, did we answer your question though? Did we answer
I don't know. I mean, numbers? I think so. Yeah. Well, if you have more you want to share around the numbers, yeah, go for it.
No, I don't think so. But I think it's just really
why don't you share this, Ryan? Just because it's better to I mean, if anyone's watched my stuff enough, you already know the answer. They already know the answer. But coming from you, like, what does it look like to have a good relationship to your numbers? What are you doing before the year starts? How are you planning? How often are you looking at them? What are you looking at? Like, what does it mean to you now that you're like running a business really grounded on the numbers? Like, what does that mean to you now?
Well, starting off like what it looks like, for example, starting the beginning of the year, one of a profound things that you guys offered was the master business plan, like spelling out every week and month of your year before the year starts. That has been an incredible game changer. Once we started doing that, just that alone, like the power in that was crazy. And then tracking that, making sure you have a pulse on it like every single week. So I guess those key measurables for us would be starting with GP, of course. What's our labor? What's our material? Then to GP. And then depending on what phase of business you're in, of course, the overhead, and then net profit. So it starts with planning it out, tracking it on a consistent basis. And like what that means to us is just, I mean, more peace of mind, clarity, confidence. Those are the first words I think of. A lot more fun way to operate a business.
Well, I think, if people hear the numbers, you got to know your numbers. And what does that even mean? Well, it means you're mapping them out before the year starts, and then you're tracking them every single week.
Yeah.
Is that what your cadence looks like? Just weekly? Yeah. You're looking at like all your numbers every single week?
Totally. Yep. And that, of course, includes things like close ratio and all those other things.
What was you said something that I think a lot of people underestimate, just the power of like having a really strong business plan. And by the way, you can, below this video in the description somewhere, you can download the Fast Growth Roadmap, and we have some version of like a business plan in there for people. So you can just get that. But can you say any more about what made that so powerful? Because I believe, I mean, when I started to operate from a really solid business plan like that, because you know, I didn't run my business on a master business plan for a long time.
Yeah.
Credit for that goes to Breakthrough Academy. I worked with Breakthrough Academy for only about 6 months or so, and I still talk to Danie and Igor, and they came to my wedding, and like I love those guys.
Yeah.
I think they do a good job, but they're the ones that I give all the credit to, like the master business plan getting put in place in my own business. And I'm like, dude, that one tool is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to me over the years. What surprised? What did you discover about that? Like, what made that so powerful? What was surprising about it? Because you wouldn't run a business any other way. Like, what did you learn putting that in place compared to not having one?
Do you want to answer that? You want me to?
Okay.
Find that? First thing I think of is the seasonality of the business here. Very helpful with that. Obviously everyone in the country, needless to say, is different. You and I probably share similar seasonalities with winters and summers, but we've got, basically May to the end of October for exterior season. So just being able to map out the ebb and flow, the seasonality of the business and see it on paper instead of just like shooting from the hip every month and hoping for the best. Super powerful. And then what was just other point to that was, I'm just a big believer and proponent of writing things down. And if you have that up and see it every day and week, like you've got a lot better chance of hitting it.
Mm-hmm.
Those two things come to mind.
Yeah. Well, I think that it'd be hard. I mean, it's a hard question. I'm asking because almost everyone underestimates the power and importance of it until you've done it, but it's hard to even articulate what difference it makes in a way that like anyone who hasn't done it would ever be able to understand. It's one of those things that you just have to do it and it will change everything. But there's the majority of people still operating on without a business plan.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a game changer.
One of the questions that everyone will want to know, because I have done enough of these, that everyone wants to know, how do you get all those leads? How do you get all the leads? This is great, guys, but how do you get the leads?
Oh, we have an answer.
I was hoping we'd get to that. That's funny you asked. So that's something that's like when we talk about constraints, right? Like that's something we realized starting last year. It's like, oh, what's this marketing thing we got to figure out now if we want to scale? Because probably unlike maybe other listeners here where you're trying to scale more quickly right off the bat, we had 5-6 years of just built up referrals where we were behind where we started to get behind on the demand we had, right? So like our story's a little different that way. And then once we caught up to that demand, it's like, oh, wait, we got to actually like do something to get leads to hit our goals. So to be very like transparent, I mean, so there's some things we are doing, but like we're just in the middle of trying to figure that out right now, what works and what doesn't, and getting over some head trash of spending money and experimenting with things. And so but maybe you want to add to that as far as what we are doing. And
well, we get majority of our leads referrals still, repeat. Google. We've been doing work on our SEO this year, which has been really helpful. And with that, trying to like, also that means, right, like keeping up with our Google business page and our socials and all that. And then direct mailers are pretty big for us. And then yard signs and vehicle.
What percent of your business comes from referral? Do you know?
I can look
like
it up.
30 to 40.
I think it's like 40 something.
40.
Okay. Almost.
So a good chunk, a third to, a third-ish. And then how much comes from website and organic?
I'd say like 20s, 20 something.
No, like 30s. I think it is.
Okay.
It's like, it's big. Yeah.
And look, for anyone listening, it's like it's pretty. You got to start to get pretty dialed with all your tracking and your CRM and all this stuff to have like exact numbers on this, which is partly like the phase you guys are getting into right now. Where like knowing the exacts will start to be valuable, but it's hard to get all of it exact too. Yeah. Maybe you have that and you just don't have it off.
We've started to hone in on it, and that's like with the hire that I made. She's going to school for data marketing. So I'm
data
like,
science,
data science. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, perfect. So she can make all this stuff.
Someone who can help you with numbers.
Right. And make sheets. And so we actually have just started tracking that this summer and starting to smooth that out and figure that out. I will say one big thing that has helped us with leads and marketing was last year rebranding or brand refresh. So we got a whole new logo and website and all that. And that has our estimator, and we hear all the time, like, you guys just seem approachable and very trustworthy. So we hear that your logo does, like our faces are on a lot of things, and that makes us, local, approachable, present, all those things. And that helps.
Yeah. And then, so just let me summarize this marketing mix. So you have referrals, right? Which is somewhere in the range of $600,000 in business. And by the way, the commercial is essentially a referral.
Yeah.
Right. So if you take that out, are you talking like 30 to 40% on just your residential as referral? Do you think?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So that's, let's just say $500,000 of your 2 million, and it was residential referral, and another $500,000 was commercial referral. So $1 million a year is from referral.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got another, somewhere around $300,000-$400,000 from Google and SEO. And then, you also do lawn signs, you do some direct mail, and that's basically what you do at this stage.
Yeah. Yep.
I'd say, this year we have like a $500K gap that we're trying to like close through actually having to spend money on marketing, like direct mail flyers, just starting to get our toes in the water with Facebook ads. But it's been like, for people listening, like it's been a pain point for a few months now because, we're not providing the leads that our estimator does need to hit all of his appointments every week. So that's been an issue, and that's on us. And like, we've got to figure it out and spend some money. Yeah.
Well, I mean, one thing to point out here is that there's a lot of ways to do $1 million a year. I mean, I think that's one really important point is there's just a lot of ways to do $1 million a year. I just talked to someone last week. It was Matt Camp, who's on one of the other podcasts around now. But he's like, I'm going to do like 850,000 or something like that this year. And it's literally just referrals and website. Like that's it. And I think that in the early parts of your business, like everyone thinks they do a good job, but how you do a really good job is how much referral business you get. And I think you guys are a great example of like, that's a demonstration of you're actually doing like a really amazing job with people that you're getting a ton of referrals. Is there anything that you guys are doing to like, do you have referral systems? Do you send emails? Do you send newsletters? Do you have incentives? Like, is there anything you have aside from doing great work that helps you generate more referrals?
We used to have a referral program, and then as we grew, that was harder to keep up with.
Yep.
We used to do like a $50 referral fee and just sending people cash.
Yep.
And now, no, we don't really have anything in place.
We send out email newsletters.
Yeah.
Not super consistently, but.
How often do you send an email newsletter to your past customers?
Yeah, the goal is every quarter. Right now, it's probably once or twice a year.
Okay. All right, great. So not a ton there. Do you text or call past customers?
No.
Do you send direct mail? You mentioned direct mail. Does any of that go to past customers?
Yes. And I always send a holiday card.
Okay.
And people appreciate it. They like it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Send a holiday card. And then what's the direct mail that you send to past customers? How often do you do that? And what do you send?
So we just started experimenting with that this year. I think we've done 2 or 3 drops.
Last
year we did 1, I think. 1, 2.
I think 2.
This year we're going to be on our 3rd.
We've done 3 this year.
And then, we're sending a holiday card. Would be then our 4th.
Your 4th.
Yeah.
So direct mail. So something in the mail quarterly, roughly. Newsletter twice a year. That's what you're doing to past customers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look, it's
Yeah.
more than most people, that's more than most people do. And I think it points to like that's all you need to do really, because the goal is to just stay top of mind. Like
Yeah.
that's it. If you do it too much, they're gonna be annoyed if it's too much direct mail, or if you do too much email, they're gonna be annoyed by that too. So the goal is just to stay top of mind.
Yeah.
And I believe that it doesn't matter how good your referral program is or your past customer communication. If you didn't do a really referral worthy job and experience, none of that matters. And if you do a really great, referral worthy experience and job, then you don't need to do that much.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what you guys are doing fits like right into that.
Yeah.
Go
I,
ahead,
I
Dan.
will add, like, I try to stay like have involvement in like community and putting that out there on our socials and everything. And then I have found, and that I don't do it, we don't do it just for that, but your past
Right.
clients, they follow you on socials. They are proud of that. And they're
Yeah.
like, oh, I like this like this local present company, and they're doing things in the community, and they're doing paint it forward projects or raising money for things.
Yeah, can you give me some examples of like what you've done this year in the community?
Yeah, so we try to do some paint it forward projects. And my goal next year is to have like an actual program set in place so we can um, do almost one a month, maybe one quarterly. So that's where like I'll email our clients and say, hey, we want to give back to our community and provide a project for someone in need, interior or exterior. So we've done those. I always do polar plunge, Special Olympics polar plunge. We raise money for Special Olympics, and our team does it, and we get our group of family or anyone in the community that wants to join us and do that. Yeah, 24 hours of heroes. So we sponsor things. So like the girls of school will sponsor. We put money aside to sponsor things and pay it forward. Yeah, 24 hours of heroes. There's our gym, and we sponsor a team for that. So.
Beautiful exterior last year.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. So, and then you highlight that on all your socials. When you send that email out to your customers, is that one of the 2 emails you sent this year, or was that another email that you sent?
That's usually a separate one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as we're unpacking this, there's actually a lot here, which makes sense, because I think a lot of people do a really great job, but don't get that many referrals. But it's starting to be a lot more things. I mean, it doesn't take nothing to do a paint it forward one quarter, sponsor this other thing the next quarter, go do this other thing the next quarter, do this thing the next quarter. We send emails twice a year. We send direct mail once a quarter. And then we make sure that we're documenting on social media across all our platforms, all this community engagement.
Yeah.
And if I'm, the people who are following your brand and who are opening your emails and opening your direct mail, like they're your best ones that are the people who, referrals, it's not like you have 100 customers and every one of them refers you one person. It's like I have 100 customers and 10 of them refer me 4 people each.
Yeah.
So you've got super referrers, and that's who you're doing all of this for. So, I mean, I just think it's really worth highlighting that for people listening, but also just for you guys to see like, oh shit, I guess we do actually a lot of things for referrals. There's things I can take out of this for like our companies to say, hey, we should do more of this community stuff and document it better, is a big one.
That's something, I mean, I think in our generation, like there's companies where I'm like, oh, what is this company like? I go to their socials. It's one of the first things I do, which sounds stupid.
Yeah.
But if I can get a peek behind the curtain, and see like what you're really about and who you are, like I'm going to want to do business with you, work with you.
I think it's really good. We do quite a bit of stuff, but I don't think we document it as well as we could, you know?
Yeah.
Sure. Well, yeah, you do a really good job at that. Thanks, Leo.
Yeah. One of the things with your, you mentioned, so everyone should be doing this. Like this is what we've been focused on a lot as a company for 4 years is referrals. And we're not really focused on referrals. We're actually focused on how do we deliver an exceptional customer experience at scale, which is easier to do early. So take advantage of it. It gets harder to do later, but how do you deliver that experience at scale? And then the reason we're so focused on that is because if I can turn, from every client we do, if on average we get, 0.2 jobs versus 0.4, the compounding of that is insane. it essentially can double your marketing budget. So for you guys, where you're doing $1 million from non-referrals and $1 million from referrals, every client you guys bring in with the system you have in place currently is bringing you like at least another half a client, but it's looking like maybe it's even more than that, because you're up to $1 million in referral work this year. And obviously 500 is from just one commercial relationship,
Right.
but it's still a big chunk. That means you actually, when you are a referral driven company that gets boatloads of referrals, you can spend a lot more money to acquire customers than someone who doesn't get as many referrals as you.
I think, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're pointing out some really good things here. I hope that listeners realize again, like, obviously we didn't do a ton of jobs the first 4 or 5 years, but it does help,
Hey, Trent, give me 10 minutes.
No, just being in business for 8 to 9 years, building that up does help. It's not like we started 2 years ago, but to your point, hopefully we've done good enough work where those referrals are continuing to pay off. Yeah.
I mean, I think it is. And I think the things you're doing, it's not about volume, but it's about the mix. And I think you have a pretty good mix. You probably could send emails make sure those are quarterly, direct mails quarterly, send a text, like check in with a text, once a year, twice a year.
Yeah.
And I think you've got like pretty much what you need, to do. And then it's just, how do we make sure our customer experience stays really tight? And with how involved you are with training your people, like that's really the key to the customer experience is that, and managing integrity through like the whole process.
Yeah, that's good. Now, the big test will be this next year as we try to basically double residential side. So
yeah, let's wrap. We'll start to wrap up. But what is the goal for next year? Where do you guys see this going next year? And then beyond that, like, what are your bigger picture goals now that you are starting to see more possible in the whole business?
You want to go?
Well, next year we are looking to do what, 3 million. Yeah.
Residential repaint, 3 million.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
And then bring on another estimator and project manager, and decide what the fuck we're gonna do. But that will, yeah.
Our roles will stay the same.
Yeah, we'll see.
Oh, you'll be busy. I mean, that's a lot in a year to have it happen. You're going to double everything in the business. So you're going to need a lot more support on the office side of things. Like that suddenly is a full-time person to handle that.
Right.
So that's actually like probably need to hire and train that person. Hiring and training a salesperson and a production person, is no small task. And then you've also got like, we got to figure out a double marketing, more than double marketing, because you can't count on your referrals doubling. So the non-referral stuff needs to maybe triple. So like, there's quite a bit there.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to have any trouble figuring out what to do with that goal.
Yeah, I think I can take that back.
Okay.
Then we'll just figure out what we're going to do. We're just going to be kicking back. Well, my guys.
You can
Maybe
go do what you want, but I'll be here. Yeah.
Well, we are in the middle of that. That's what I mean. Of like, if I'm gonna hire a full time someone in the office, then where am I going to be allocated to and all that.
Yeah.
So.
No, I know. I'm picking on you more than anything because it's fun. You know how we do it, Danie.
I know.
But yeah, figuring out like what's our role like in all of that, like who's doing marketing, who's hiring that person, how's doing that. Like everything is shifting and moving, and there'll be growing pains with any kind of growth like that. And then for downstream, I mean, what are the bigger picture goals that you guys see for the business?
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of numbers and scaling, our 3-year would be to be in that 5 to 6 million range. And at that point, like one of my personal goals in the business is to have like that integrator kind of general manager. There's a few different names you could call it, right? But like have that integrator role filled. The person who's executing the business plan, holding people accountable, where I find like a lot of my I believe a lot of my like passions and strengths are in kind of that visionary role, still in the business, obviously, but like just leading and guiding. And I think time will kind of tell. I think your role will just continue to get like narrower and narrower, and but still super important. But kind of big picture, that's where
Yes.
I'd like to see us go.
Danny, did you ever think when he said that I think I'm going to start a painting company to get out of my cubicle that was this anywhere in the realm of possibility at the
No,
time?
no,
Yeah.
no, because I
Yeah,
saw it. Honestly, I saw it as like
that's
when
fun.
he started out of just like direct W-2 employees, and he's going to be on the brush all the time. I'm like, this is fucking a lot. Like,
Yeah.
what are we doing? And then now I'm like, oh, okay, I can stay here. I can be involved with this. I
Yeah.
can do this. Yeah.
Oh, you know what? We got to wrap up, but I
Yeah.
didn't ask one of the probably the most important things that's unique with you guys, which is you guys are married and you're kind of co-running this business together. So, what has that been like? What have been some of the challenges? Like, how do you keep work and life separate, or do you, or are you just cool with that? Like, what's it been like, running a business together?
I would say it's both hard and fun. It's I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It's fucking hard. Like you say, like there's like pain points, but we have had to figure it out. We do try to keep boundaries and separate, and I know that's like a cliche thing to say of like boundaries, but um, he said like he likes working 35 plus hours a week. It's his passion. It's not necessarily my passion, to be 100% honest, but I like you've said, like the vehicle it provides.
Yeah.
Um, but
Friends and peers. Yeah.
but I always say we have to keep in mind that we didn't get married to start this business and to grow this business. We got married because for a separate reason. And so it can be really hard when things are going bad or we disagree and it rolls over into our marriage and day to day. That's hard. It's
Yeah.
hard to keep separate, but we have to be very intentional about keeping them separate and taking time for ourselves as a couple and not just
Yeah.
business partners. But it's fun too to be like, oh wow, look at us doing this together and growing this and working together for something outside of ourselves. So
Anything to, yeah.
Yeah.
Anything to add, Ryan?
I think we're fortunate that and lucky, like we do overall work really well together. I think we're just some luck, and that works for us. Um, I think that communication and just communication's big. Again, just like it is in marriage, but there's times where in the evenings or the weekends where maybe we catch ourselves talking about the business, and that's okay. Like there's nothing wrong with that, but maybe one person doesn't. Usually, right? Usually it's probably me that wants to talk about it, and maybe you don't. But
yeah.
or like when we're on a date night and we catch ourselves talking about business, sometimes we'll catch ourselves like, all right, let's not talk about business right now. Um, but
we try
yeah,
to like with the communication every week, try to what do we need from each other every week, right? Like, hey, I got a lot of shit going on over here on my side this week. I need your understanding that I'm going to be working more or working less. And we can balance each other that way. But the communication with that way with our schedules and our needs, I mean, it sets up expectations and then, you try to avoid disappointment and resentment with
Yeah.
that.
Josephine and I have one of the things we've created together is that we stand for the opportunity to live a created life and what it takes.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's kind of what you guys are doing is you've created this business which allows you to create a life, but now you've got like that's work. Like it's work. It's work worth doing because living a life on your own terms and when you create and design is like awesome, but you also have to do the thinking and the communicating and the working to like create a life. How are we going to create a business? How are we going to create the rest of our life with that freedom, that you've created? So I think it's just like, it's not an easy thing, but whether you're in business by yourself or your partner or a couple, like growth will challenge you, and you'll learn and you'll grow from it. And so, I mean, I know, Josephine and I ran a business together for a little bit, and then we worked together, obviously with her running all the events and things like that. So it's not quite the same, but, there's opportunities that come from that growth that you wouldn't have otherwise, and how you level up your communicating with each other and how you can work together and how you can understand each other. So anyways, I can relate to, it's tough. And same thing with me with just partners, there's challenges with partners, like partnership is not easy. But those challenges, if you work through them, can be, huge growth.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. That makes me think of just two other really quick notes.
Yeah.
Like one is, I started it, of course, Danie joined. I've always been very clear and open, like, hey, if you ever wake up one day and you just don't want to be a part of this anymore, like, that's perfectly fine. That's okay. And so I guess the point of me saying that is like, I've made that clear.
Yep.
But at the same time, the longer you're in it, the more it's drawn you in. The friends and relationships that we have in the industry is just incredible. Never thought that we would have that.
And then we start stepping on each other's toes, and then it gets hard.
Well, that was the other point. Now that we have a team, like, we have to, like, you've got to be very intentional and aware of, like, when you're in the office and all of our team is, if, like, we have to treat each other as if we are not married, and if there's crap going on at home, like, don't bring it into the office, and let that bleed into the team culture. So that can be challenging.
Well, I could talk to you guys for a long time. You guys know I love you. It's been so great having you guys at the events. I mean, I didn't even know you guys were Painting Business Pro members really until the first event. When actually, in this business, you're like, actually,
we're kind of quiet in the background.
Yeah. We bought your program 6 years ago. So no, it's been really, really great. Just getting to know you guys and seeing the growth, and I know you keep doing great things. So thanks for sharing. And I'm wrapping this up quickly because I know Trent is about to jump into our room for our next show. So
absolutely.
So anyways, we'll end it there. But thank you guys for sharing, and I just appreciate you both so much. Hey guys, thanks for listening to the show. I hope you found it valuable. We make these episodes in the show for you, truly. So your feedback is super valuable to us, whether it's, things you liked, things you didn't like, what you want to see more of, what you want to see less of. Any feedback you can give us is going to be super helpful as we continue to evolve and improve the show over time. And if you want a copy of the Fast Growth Roadmap for Painting Contractors, which really simplifies the steps you take to building a business, we've got that resource for free for you. Just check the description or the bio where you're watching or listening to this episode, and you can just click and download that for free, and it should help give you a good roadmap for how to build and scale your business like the people that you're listening to on the show. So thanks for listening in. We'll see you soon.